Welcome to VoxCrupt.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to plunge into fascinating topics, not just giving you facts, but really unearthing those connections, those big aha moments that help us all get truly well-informed. Today, we're wrestling with a text that's, well, been sparking debate for over 2,000 years. Plato's Republic.
It really has. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's far from some dusty old book.
Yeah.
It feels more like a living blueprint that's still shaping how we think about society, about government.
Absolutely. It's incredible how relevant it still feels. And that power, I think, comes from this central tension it explores. You've got this vision of a highly ordered, rational society.
Right.
Clashing with what we often think of as individual freedom. It's been seen both ways, hasn't it? As a model for good governance, but also, more darkly, maybe a precursor to authoritarianism.
And that's exactly what we want to unpack in this deep dive. Our mission is to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding why this book is just so controversial, so compelling. We're going to pull out the most important bits, help you quickly grasp Plato's ideal state, its core ideas, and importantly, the critiques and even some surprising modern parallels. The goal is you walk away with some real insights into its legacy.
And the questions Plato tackles about justice, how we should govern ourselves, what liberty even is, they're still absolutely central today.
Yeah.
To get Plato's vision, though, it helps to remember his context. The Republic can definitely be read as his reaction, his response to the failures he saw in Athenian democracy.
Especially the execution of Socrates, his teacher.
Exactly. That was huge for him. He saw democracy as, well, chaotic. Impulsive crowds, maybe uneducated, wielding power, leading to bad decisions, injustice.
Okay, so he's disillusioned with democracy. That sets up the big question for us then. Does Plato's perfect order, with its specific ideas on justice, hierarchy, philosophical training, does it actually preserve real freedom?
Or does it end up sacrificing liberty for control? Erasing individuality, conditioning minds, centralizing all the power.
And we have to keep in mind his definition of freedom is key here. It's not ours. For Plato, freedom wasn't choice or self-determination. It was more like being in the right place.
A stark contrast, really. He saw what we might call freedom, unbounded choice as dangerous, a symptom of decay.
Okay, let's unpack that. How did he define justice then, with not equality or freedom as we know it?
For Plato, justice is fundamentally about inner harmony. It's a state where every person and every social class does its job, performs its designated role, and, crucially, stays in its lane.
Stays in its lane.
Yeah. And he thought this mirrored the soul itself. He saw the soul as having three parts: reason logos,
Okay.
spirit timos, and appetite epithemia.
Right.
In a just person, reason rules the other two. And in a just society, the same principle applies. Reason needs to be in charge.
So that's the theory of justice. How did he map that onto society? What's the blueprint for this ideal state?
It's a hierarchy built on three distinct classes. At the very top, you have the philosophers. They are the rulers.
The philosopher-kings we hear about.
Exactly. They embody reason. They govern based on truth, love wisdom above everything, and crucially, they're supposed to be completely detached from personal wealth or gain.
Okay, rulers driven by reason. Who's next?
Below them are the guardians. Think soldiers, enforcers. They represent the spirit part of the soul. Their job is to defend the city, maintain order. They need courage, discipline.
Got it. Philosophers for reason, guardians for spirit.
Yeah.
And at the bottom.
That's the producers. Farmers, artisans, merchants, they represent appetite. Their role is fulfilling the material needs of the society. They're driven by, desires for ownership, physical things.
And Plato thought stability comes from everyone just sticking to their role.
Precisely. Each class stays in its place. But you can immediately see the implication. That structure really limits social mobility. It limits individual choice about what you want to be.
Yeah, definitely. And that brings us back to maybe his most radical idea, the philosopher-king. Why is this so central, and why does it still spark so much debate?
Well, it's this idea of merging political power with deep philosophical wisdom in one ruler. Plato's logic was simple. Philosophers seek truth, not power or money. They're free from bias, free from greed, committed only to the common good. So he argued they're the only ones truly capable of just governance.
It sounds almost perfect on paper, doesn't it? A wise, selfless leader. But what about the downsides? How do you guarantee they stay incorruptible?
Exactly. That's a huge question.
And isn't putting all that power into such a tiny, elite group inherently risky? Couldn't it just become tyranny, even with the best intentions?
That's the core criticism. What happens to political freedom when the public has no say, when participation is just excluded? Critics argue this model, no matter how noble it sounds, could easily pave the way for unchecked authority.
Yeah, the idea of an all-knowing ruler always runs into problems with accountability, doesn't it?
It really does. It clashes with our ideas about checks and balances.
So given this very rigid structure, let's circle back to freedom. Where does it fit in Plato's world? Does it even exist in a way we'd recognize?
Well, like we said, he sort of redefines it. He didn't see freedom as personal choice or autonomy. In fact, he saw too much of that, what he called unbounded freedom, as a sign of democracy falling apart.
Right, leading to chaos because people aren't guided by reason.
Exactly. For him, real freedom meant being aligned with reason, with the collective good. It wasn't about lack of constraint, but about living according to the right constraints, the rational ones.
So the common good comes first, way before individual liberty.
Absolutely. It completely precedes it. Think about the practical implications for someone living in this state. You don't choose your job. It's assigned based on your supposed innate abilities.
Wow.
Marriage, having children, that's regulated by the state too, all for the greater good to produce the best future citizens.
State-controlled matchmaking.
Pretty much. And for the guardians, the soldiers and rulers, no private property. It's forbidden to stop corruption, stop personal interests getting in the way of duty.
It's hard to even imagine. Picture your life if all those choices, your career, your partner, whether you own anything, were made for you, for the sake of the state.
It's a radically different conception of life.
And it goes beyond just those big life choices. Plato seems to systematically remove things we consider fundamental freedoms, all to keep that order.
You mentioned art earlier. What was his issue there?
Ah, yes, art. Especially poetry and drama. He saw it as a direct threat to reason.
A threat? Why?
Because he thought art was just an imitation of an imitation. Like a painting is a copy of a real object, which is itself just a shadow of the true form or idea. So art is twice removed from truth.
Okay.
And more than that, it stirs up emotions. It weakens reason's control. It can spread false ideas about gods or heroes. So for Plato, most poets, they had to go. Exile them.
Exile the poets. It sounds extreme.
It is extreme. It shows how far he was willing to go. Order meant sacrificing freedom of expression, imagination, emotion. It's chilling, really. Giving up so much of what makes us feel human art, family ties for this perfect order. And you mentioned family ties. It gets even more radical for the guardians, right?
Oh, completely. For the guardian class, both the rulers and the soldiers, the traditional family unit is just abolished.
Abolished? How does that even work?
Children are raised communally. Parents don't know who their biological children are, and children don't know their parents.
Wow. And the purpose of that?
To eliminate personal bias, family favoritism, those strong emotional attachments, the goal was absolute loyalty only to the state, to the collective. It's a dismantling of a core human institution.
A huge limit on emotional freedom, personal connection.
Massive. And this communal idea, it wasn't just about kids, it applied to stuff too. We touched on property.
Right, the guardians couldn't own private property.
Exactly. Philosophers and soldiers had to live communally, sharing everything, having no personal wealth. The idea was to prevent corruption, keep them focused on the public good, not on getting rich.
So no economic freedom for them either.
None. So you see this pattern emerging. A clear trade-off. Order is paramount, and the price is freedom of expression, freedom of association, economic freedom, family bonds.
This level of control, it must extend to how people are educated, how their minds are shaped.
Absolutely. Education wasn't just about learning facts for Plato. It was a deep psychological process. It was about molding minds, shaping beliefs, shaping behavior right from childhood to fit the social order perfectly.
Like psychological engineering.
That's a good way to put it. Education was a tool to create citizens who didn't just know their place, but who deeply believed in it, accepted it.
And that involved controlling what they learned.
Oh, definitely. Strict censorship was key. Stories, myths, especially anything showing gods or heroes behaving badly, that had to be cut. Can't corrupt young minds.
So focus only on virtue, on rationality.
Yes. And actively suppressing emotions like fear or excessive grief or even passionate love. Plato saw strong emotions as destabilizing. Reason had to dominate everything.
He really feared the power of imagination, didn't he?
Deeply. Unless it was strictly guided by reason. That's why poetry, music, they were so dangerous in his view. They bypass reason, hit you right in the emotions, pull you away from truth. Only certain kinds of music, Very controlled, rational rhythms and harmonies were allowed.
It all sounds incredibly controlled. And then comes perhaps the most controversial tool for control, the noble lie.
Ah, yes, the myth of the metals. This is a real bombshell, especially coming from a philosopher obsessed with truth.
He actually admits it's a lie.
Openly calls it a noble lie, yes.
It-
It's a foundational story, a piece of propaganda told to all citizens to make them accept their place in the hierarchy.
What does the myth say?
It says that the gods mixed different metals into people's souls when they were created. Gold for the philosopher rulers,
Right?
silver for the guardians, the soldiers, and bronze or iron for the producers, the workers.
And this supposedly explains why they have different roles.
Exactly. It justifies the social structure as natural, divinely ordained almost. It suggests you're born for your role, and trying to move outside it is unnatural, wrong. It locks people in.
So it's a tool to prevent unrest, to maintain harmony, but based on a deliberate falsehood.
Precisely. And Plato acknowledges it's a fabrication, but deems it necessary for social stability. It's a stark example of political expediency overriding philosophical truth in his own system. It really makes you question, can a lie ever be noble if it's used for social control?
It's a deeply uncomfortable idea. No wonder this whole blueprint has faced criticism from the very beginning, even his own student, Aristotle.
Right, Aristotle offered a major critique in his work, Politics. He fundamentally disagreed with abolishing the family and private property.
What was his argument?
He argued that these things aren't the source of problems, they're actually essential for human flourishing. They foster affection, responsibility, ambition, even innovation. Aristotle warned that Plato's drive for absolute unity would crush necessary diversity. He thought a good society needed both order and a healthy space for individual lives and natural relationships.
So even back then, there was this tension between Plato's radical vision and a more maybe human-centric view.
Absolutely. The debate started early.
And jumping ahead many centuries, in the 20th century, you get figures like Karl Popper taking aim at Plato.
Yes, Karl Popper. In his famous book, The Open Society and Its Enemies, he basically labels Plato an enemy of freedom. He saw the Republic not as a utopia, but as a blueprint for a closed society.
A closed society, meaning
Meaning a society that resists change, suppresses criticism, crushes intellectual freedom. Popper saw the philosopher-kings as just a fancy term for an unaccountable oligarchy.
and he connected Plato's ideas to modern totalitarianism.
Directly. He argued that Plato's emphasis on censorship, state control of education, the noble lie, the rigid hierarchy, all these things laid the groundwork intellectually for 20th century totalitarian regimes like fascism and communism. It's a very strong charge.
Wow. And Hannah Arendt, another major thinker, she also had concerns.
She did. Arendt also saw elements in Plato that could be dangerous if taken literally. Particularly his focus on absolute, unchanging truth, the way individuality gets suppressed, the strict class system.
What worried her most?
She was very concerned about the elimination of the public realm, the space for open debate, political action, participation. When decisions are made only by elites behind closed doors, she argued, political freedom dies. Like Popper, she didn't think Plato intended to create a tyranny, but she warned that his principles, uncritically applied, could absolutely lead there.
It's a sobering thought, good intentions potentially leading to oppressive outcomes.
A recurring theme when we look at utopian thinking, perhaps.
Yet, despite all these heavy critiques, the Republic has undeniably had a massive influence on Western thought.
Oh, immense. You can't overstate it. He introduced foundational concepts. The idea that rulers should be virtuous, the functional division of society, the critical role of education and politics. These ideas echoed through centuries. Thinkers like Al-Farabi, Augustine, Rousseau, Hegel, they all engaged deeply with Plato's framework.
And do we see echoes today in modern states?
You can definitely see traces. The idea of an educated elite having a role in governance, state-run education systems shaping citizens, specialized jobs, these have Platonic roots, in a way.
But there are huge differences too, right?
Absolutely huge. Most modern states, at least in principle, emphasize things Plato restricted. Public participation, individual rights, civil liberties. Those are central to our idea of a just society, largely absent in his.
Which brings us back to those disturbing parallels with 20th century authoritarianism. The concentrated power, the censorship, getting rid of property or family for some groups, the ideological training.
Yes, those resemblances are hard to ignore. Again, it's crucial to say Plato likely didn't intend anything like Stalin's Russia or Nazi Germany, but the structure he proposed, the mechanisms of control, if you adopt them without serious checks and balances, without a deep commitment to individual dignity, well, The potential for abuse is clearly there.
It serves as both inspiration and a serious warning.
Exactly. A profound thought experiment that forces us to ask, what price are we willing to pay for order?
It's also fascinating to look at how other cultures engage with Plato. You mentioned an Iranian perspective earlier. How does that contrast?
It offers a really interesting counterpoint. Plato's vision is so focused on reason, logic, controlling emotion. Iranian traditions, both ancient and Islamic, tend to weave social order together with poetry, with love, with spiritual meaning in a way Plato seemed wary of.
So art isn't seen as a threat.
Quite the opposite. In Iranian culture, poetry, for instance, is often seen as a path to truth, a way to educate morally and philosophically, to express the deepest parts of being human. Think of Hafez or Rumi. That's very different from Plato wanting to banish the poets.
And Al-Farabi's virtuous city, how did he adapt Plato?
Al-Farabi, a major Iranian philosopher, took Plato's structure but infused it with Islamic wisdom and ethics. He replaced the philosopher-king with a wise prophet-imam figure. His ideal city isn't just rational, it's ethical, it's spiritual. Love, faith, morality are central.
So freedom might mean something different there too.
Yes, often in mystical traditions like Sufism, freedom is more about inner liberation, freedom from ego, from hypocrisy, not just political rights. So while Plato's freedom is about being in the right place within a rational order, this Iranian line of thought seeks an order enriched by love, meaning, spirituality, human dignity. It shows there isn't just one way to imagine an ideal society.
Okay, so we've explored this duality in the Republic. The dream of perfect harmony versus the potential nightmare of lost freedom. Can we even salvage Plato's ideas today? Can we reinterpret the Republic without adopting its control mechanisms?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it's possible, but it demands a very critical engagement. You'd have to fundamentally transform some core elements.
Like what?
Well, education couldn't be psychological engineering. It would need to be about cultivating creativity, critical thinking. Art and imagination wouldn't be suppressed. They'd be embraced as vital paths to understanding. Elites, if they exist, couldn't be absolute rulers, maybe more like guides or facilitators in a collaborative process.
So ditching things like abolishing the family, censoring art, the noble lie?
Essentially, yes. It means taking the best of Plato, his emphasis on reason, on virtue, on the importance of education, his quest for justice, but firmly rejecting the parts that sacrifice human dignity and freedom on the altar of perfect order.
It comes back to that balance between freedom and order. They don't have to be enemies, right?
Ideally, no. But it's incredibly delicate. Plato's scale tips heavily, almost entirely towards order. Reinterpreting him means trying to bring that scale back into balance, maybe by drawing on other traditions like the ones we discussed.
So Plato remains this incredibly complex figure.
Absolutely, two sides. The brilliant philosopher, the founder of the dialogue, searching for truth and justice, inspiring countless thinkers.
And the other side?
The shadow architect, maybe?
Yeah.
Tempted by the allure of perfect control. Designing a system whose logic, if you strip away the nuance, could become a blueprint for total control. Recognizing both sides is crucial.
This deep dive, then, it's not just about ancient Greece. It holds up a mirror to us now, to how we think about reason, power, and freedom today.
Definitely.
It forces us to keep asking, can we actually build a society that is both just and genuinely free? And maybe, can philosophy itself be a tool for liberation rather than a tool for domination?
Powerful questions to keep pondering.
Indeed. Something for all of you to think about long after this deep dive ends.